Hello friends, welcome back to Spiritism for All, and today we continue to study the book Behind the Scenes of Obsession, the chapter Reencounter with the Past, first part, dictated by the spirit of Manoel Philomeno de Miranda. The medium is Divaldo Pereira Franco. Just to remember you here, Brother Glaucus and the Spiritist team are in the amphitheater and near to Dr. Theophrastus after the show that had finished. So they are waiting to have an interview with Dr. Theophrastus. So let's proceed. This chapter is too big for one video, and so we split the chapter in two parts. Surrounded by strangely dressed acolytes, who acted as secretaries and selected cases for the chief, he was also protected by fierce entities, in whose faces, furrowed by deep signs of intimate disturbance, hypnosis had produced states of hallucination and truculence. Incapable of any reasoning, these beings externalized the equity of the animal that protects its master and attacks the less vigilant. Among them stood out those who were victims of transformations in their perispirits, staying there possibly with the purpose of creating psychological condition of fear in the less informed consultants. Brother Glaucus, very serene, urged us to the silent prayer and the preservation of the spiritual state of balance, whatever events might happen, and kept us immediately behind the small groups that were interrogated by the acolytes. Our group, united, waited, while the priest, at a short distance, took attitudes and decisions, always using the fear to dominate and influence consultants. A cruel-looking entity stood out from among the active members, approached our brother Glaucus and inquired him about the reasons for the interview and who were the participants in the group. The venerable benefactor elucidated with simplicity that these were spirits of the two planes of life in need of hearing from Dr. Theophrastus about a serious problem of obsession in progress and for which he alone had the necessary resources. He added that he had been nominated by Guilherme, the Dutch boy who was formerly a member of that association. Revisiting us with an almost hallucinated look, inspecting us as if trying to discover beyond words the real reasons for the interview, shaken by successive spasms on the face, he put us aside and continued with the task to which he was dedicated. Only then was it possible for me to look at Dr. Theophrastus, considering the small distance that separated us. The cruel face, adorned with a sparse beard, oriental-like, around thick lips in a wreath of permanent wrath, the reddish and large eyes, something out of the orbits, menacing, protruding cheekbones, broad forehead, and abundant hair, was the classic incarnation of the dread. As if we had guessed by my discreet observation, he looked away from the crowd he was serving and fixed his eyes on mine, questioning me strongly and hard, making me look down disturbed. Brother Glaucus, who was watching the event, gently warned me. We are in our Lord's tasks. Every care is essential for the success of the project. Curiosity is now also disregard for our commitment. Let's be careful. With the opportune observation, he called me charitably to recollection, to prayer. Those at the front having been attended to, it was our turn. We stayed a little further back while Brother Glaucus, representing the team, humble and noble, spoke without preamble. Sir, here we are, indicated by Guilherme, the Dutchman who recently said goodbye to this organization, heading towards the body, to incarnation. The magician raised his frowning brows and stared hard into the benefactor's eyes, seeking to probe the depths of his spirit. One of the minions approached and shared some remark. The timely, purposeful pause was aimed at creating a better reception for the silent listener with a fierce expression. Continuing, our leader explained, "It so happens that we find ourselves in perfect identification with Guilherme, who was served with Continuing, our leader explained, "It so happens that we find ourselves in perfect identification with Guilherme, who has served you with dedication, seeking you on this opportunity to talk to you about Henriette, which we know is linked to your heart since a long time." Henriette Marie de Beauharnais? He inquired, almost struck by a strong ray of hatred. "Yes, sir," Brother Glaucus confirmed, unperturbed. The entity rose from his ridiculous throne and advanced furiously, as if to annihilate the informer, who remained serene, confident. Arriving at the instructor's side, with revealed paleness in his marbled face, he stopped his pace and, raising the scepter simulacrum, struck the floor repeatedly, threatening him with a sullen voice, an attitude that imposed alarming silence in the amphitheatre, which still remained with some gibberish. All attention was focused on the two parliamentarians and the most unfortunate entities of the court approached in a menacing attitude, surrounding the chief, painfully victimized by irascibility. "And what do you want to inform me that perhaps I do not know? Do you not know who I am?" He snarled, understandably disgusted. "We do know, sir," continued the messenger. "It just so happens, however, that considering the magnitude of the matter which we have come to discuss, we would be very grateful if we could be heard alone, without the onlookers. We are bearers of news that only to your authority should we trust." After an expressive silence, he concluded, "Henriette needs your help." The spirit, wounded by the unexpected surprise, uttered raw exclamations and cries, giving different orders simultaneously, and holding our brother Glaucus violently, ordered hoarsely, "Come with me!" The benefactor did not put up any resistance, and we followed him. The other members of the group were surrounded by the chief's henchmen and led to the back part of the amphitheater, where we had gone with our mentor. The room, of ample proportions, was decorated in strong somber tones with shockingly shimmering lights. That was the cabinet of the vigorous spirit of shadows, feared and detested. Sitting in a chair placed in a prominent position, he ordered, "I am waiting for the information." Imprinting noble inflection in his voice, without any affectation, the instructor clarified, "We are dedicated to helping the sick in the name of Jesus." And, "Jesus, this is my house," roared the truculent spirit. "Here that name is cursed, detested. How do you encourage yourself to tell me that you are dedicated to helping the sick in front of the head of the house of justice?" He surged forward, fury fuming, as if he wished to destroy the one who faced him, yet feeling unable to do so. We do not wish to challenge the strength of the noble Dr. Theophrastus, whom we know and whom we have learned to respect as an instrument of life and truth, the humble messenger pointed out. It happens, however, that we could not betray the objectives of this interview. If we speak to the commander of these sites in the name of truth itself, yes, but above all of mercy and love. Lifting his lucid gaze, the instructor concentrated on Jesus and using all the potential of his magnetic and hypnological forces, faced the low vibrations externalized by the interlocutor as if in that clash of forces the current of love had overcome the uncontrolled energies of hate and animosity, continuing the narration. Visiting spiritually disturbed people imprisoned in the body, we recently identified Henriette in a painful process of vampire behavior, victimized by elements of disorganization, and for that reason, "From this house, am I hearing correctly?" he asked, interrupting abruptly. "Henriette, victim of our organization? And what makes you think that I'm interested in anyone's life on earth just because she is supposed to be Henriette Marie de Beauharnais? Who informed you that I might have something to do with this character?" "With she herself," replied the mentor calmly. "Assisting her with magnetic resources, we were able to make her remember the past, to provide her with some help, and while narrating her own drama, she evoked the immense love she dedicated to you back the 15th century, before a disastrous event." Dr. Theophrastus, unexpectedly caught by the sure and indisputable information, jumped up again, and apoplectic held the narrator with still hands, asking, out of control, "Where is she? What happened to her? What has become of her life? Take me to her presence immediately. I want to find out what is happening to her." "I cannot, my friend. It doesn't depend on me, it depends on you. This is the reason for the interview we are having here. we want to work out the means to reconcile the high goals that we all set ourselves, in order to regularize situations in disarray, whose work will result in the benefits we need. But I am one of the evil geniuses, and my measurement differs from yours, he rumbled, gasping. I will represent justice, and I hate mercy. I awake every criminal conscience to the scope of punishment. I never faced or used pity or compassion. I am a victim of the Lamb, and I hate him. Victim of Christ. So, there is no term of conciliation between us. I therefore feel obliged to excise your confession using my methods, which are certainly not unknown to you. Yes, we certainly know them, nodded the benefactor. It should, however, be considered that, before taking the attitude of looking for you at your place of dominance, we examined the various possibilities of victory and failure, concluding with the first hypothesis. Considering that we are not here to request, but to offer on behalf of the Supreme Giver of life, from whom we shall not evade indefinitely. You claim that you were a victim of the Lamb, and you know that the information does not match the facts. The Lamb's directives were never compatible with the processes of the Catholic Inquisition, as they are not in agreement with the methods of the God's justice, the procedures applied by your hands. As for the threat of extracting the information you want from me by methods incompatible with the purposes of this meeting, we conclude that it's unfeasible, since our present informs you of the interest we have to offer clarifications without any struggle that generates an unhappy situation between us both. Where I can retain your embassy's participants in my domain, in which I am the absolute master, he said haughtily. I don't discuss the relative position of the chief, Brother Glaucus clarified. We wished, however, to remind you that the power of which you speak comes all from above, from God, since no one is the master of life but He. As for being held in your hands, this would only come to pass if it were His will, and being, we humbly submit ourselves in view of being able to serve Him in any place and in any situation, however embarrassing it may seem to us. Tears misted our eyes. The benefactor's plain and frank language, the firm and humble attitude, testified the very need to strive for the truth always, in the name of the Lord. Dr. Theophrastus, overcome by the irrefutable logic of the visitor, concealed the anger that excited him, and although he continued to be arrogant, asked, "What do you want from me after all?" "Help me free Henriette." "How could I do it?" "If you would accompany us to the place of trials and pain, in which she finds herself, defeated and gasping under an implacable rival, which tears her apart." "Let's go on, then, without delay." We remind the noble Dr. Theophrastus that we will continue on a mission of mercy, and that the methods with the executioner that haunts her will be those enforce the laws of love as taught by Jesus Christ. Let's not waste time with useless discussion. Let's go forward. Summoning two guards who were posted outside the compound, he confided some instructions. The rest of the interviews were suspended, and making our way through the sufferers who were still in the room, we followed the old magus towards the vehicles that were waiting for us at the door. After approximately 15 minutes, we arrived at an old mansion with a terrifying appearance due to the abandonment to which it was relegated, and entered through the immense entrance gate. The traffic of deplorable-looking deceased was very large. Incarnate in partial detachment from sleep, they were agitated semi-crazy. Saturnino, who watched us more closely, me, Petitinga, and the medium Moraes, informed us that we were meeting in a leprosy hospital which housed more than 200 people with Hansen's disease. Nauseous and strong odor filled the air, and dense clouds originated by vibrations charged with revolt and despair offered the aspect of the unhappy regions of the lower spirit world, where many are re-educating through suffering. Brother Saturnino, interested in clarifying us, explained, suffering, in whatever form, is a blessing. However, in order for those who experience it to their benefit, it is essential to be accompanied by resignation, humility, and the appraisement of one's own pain. It's not enough, therefore, to suffer, but rather to suffer properly, freeing oneself from the root causes of affliction. It's very common to find men experiencing the imposition of ransom under clouds of anger and despair, with which, thanks to rebellion and unjustifiable complaints, the burden of debt increases. For this reason, there are places for education beyond of the flesh, as well as within the carnal walls. Regions where the cronies from the various crime departments gather to rescue, in an atmosphere of affinity, the disasters committed against the sovereign law and justice. And to finish the clarifications, he concluded, in this house, as in other similar ones, are those who affronted the body, disrespecting the sources of life, those who crushed other lives while holding the reins of power in their hands, those who have closed ears and eyes to the clamor of the hungry and maddened of paying crowds, hands that lifted the whip and tore apart the others, hearts that were stoned in indifference while enjoying the liquor of fortune, of lying nobility, of external beauty while incarnate, the haters, the proud, some inveterate suicides, in constant temptation to escape from the burden again. In carnal purgatory, they can transit to the regions of light or the abysses of darkness, depending on the free choice available to those who sponge with resignation or with revolt. Silencing, we approached an infected room after passing through a long corridor in which 2 rows of filthy cells housed the disfigured bodies of deeply unhappy women, decayed by the destructive disease. Dr. Theophrastus did not hide his revolt his almost unbridled despair. Brother Glaucus entered one of the last rooms at the end of the immense wing, and, following him, we encountered a distressing scene. 3 leprosy women were asleep, assisted by a small gang of merciless obsessors who dominated them. In vigil, they kept on guard, unveiling and tormenting the spirits of the sick, half disconnected from their physical bodies and almost maddened with anguish in the face of the continual aggression of the pursuers. Dr. Theophrastus' guards stayed in the corridor at the cell's entrance door in an attitude of surveillance. A young woman less than 20 years old, in whose body the disease had not yet produced the signs of its presence, very thin and fainted over a dirty cot, was the reason for the visit. Very calmly the brother Glaucus explained, addressing the Magus of Rouen, "Here's Henriette. Take care and pity of her tormentor. We will attend him, but please avoid hatred." The assassin, who had pleasure in the martyrdom of the crowds, contemplating the fainted young woman, bathed in algaed sweat and defeated by annihilating vampirism, screamed, ravaged, blasphemed, and advanced towards her obsessor that was there in an adversary's position, what was kindly controlled by the instructor. Looking at Saturnino, the friendly mentor conveyed a silent request, and the charity worker, raising his voice, exhorted divine protection in a heartfelt prayer with which he sensitized us all. Dr. Theophrastus, insensitive to higher vibration for a long time, remained invaded by his usual feelings, which did not prevent Saturnino from approaching the young woman and applying longitudinal passes. Passes are healing blessings to her fainting body, awakening her, after which he freed her spirit from the mind of the relentless obsessor. The girl woke up unexpectedly in the body, her eyes dazed, as if returning from a nightmare, only to fall asleep again after a few minutes of reorganization of her thoughts. Touched by the shadowy landscapes of the small enclosure, Saturnino attended to the other inmates, exhorting the withdrawal of their disembodied adversaries, who left the enclosure noisy, saying obscene words insensitive. The girl's pursuer, however, was kept there, in hypnotic sleep, while our brother Glaucus produced the patient's astral projection and her immediate return to lucidity. The girl glanced around the room, and when she saw the figure of Dr. Theophrastus, she was stricken with shock. Wanting to escape, watching her affectionately, the instructor vitalized her with calming fluids and suggested Dr. Theophrastus to come closer. The former victim of the Inquisition stepped forward, visibly moved, and unable to subdue his favorite soul, he cried out, "Henriette, Henriette, what did they do to you? Why did you leave me?" Convulsive crying broke out unhinged from the executioner of so many souls. Although the young woman's name was Ana Maria, she seemed to register his voice in the depths of her being and suddenly awakened, thanks to the vigorous energies that the instructor applied over her spiritual memory, and she also responded in tears. "Who is calling me? What do you want from me?" As Ana Maria awakened to the past, her spiritual form registered the signs of the tragedies that befell her through time, presenting herself considerably changed, aged, with the marks of discarnation and the characteristics of the old personality. "Is she my Henriette Marie?" roared the Magus. "It can't be her, so beautiful and pure. The shadow of a woman must be some vixen to confuse me." The painful interrogation resounded in the air when the unfortunate entity replied, "And who are you? Why do you offend me? I, if you are Henriette Marie, I am the one who has always loved you. I am Theophrastus, whom the inquisitorial fire did not consume, nor could put to death the love I always had for you." To be continued. This is a very interesting drama with so many lessons for all of us. Let's meet again in the next video. Thank you very much for watching us. If you like this video, please leave us a like, share with your friends, leave us your comments, and subscribe to the channel, so helping us to grow. Thank you very much.